Welcome back to Beyond the Wrench. My name is Jay Goninen, and I am your host. Today, I have recurring guest Josh Arnold, who is a master technician at Toyota and Subaru of Corvallis. Almost mixed that up right there, Josh. Welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Good. So, because we've done now, I think, is this our third podcast together?
Third time.
Third time. We don't have to go through your background as much. If you want to know about his background, we have two other episodes where we talked about it. But what if you remember listening to those podcasts, Josh was a very, very intelligent technician and has kind of a different outlook on the industry as a whole. From the shoes of a technician, I always respected that and respect everything that you do out there. So this conversation is kind of going to be like that, right? We're going to talk about driving positivity throughout the industry in a time when oftentimes all you hear are the negative comments from a technician, and it could be through social media. I think that makes it spread like wildfire for some reason,
Yes.
but something that we struggle with, don't we?
Yeah, it's something that we see every day. I mean, even coming into the industry, our apprentices, people at the tech schools, everyone talks about it. It's just something that kind of looms over our industry. So I'm hoping that with this podcast today, we catch a couple young ears, somebody that maybe has heard something, and we can maybe change some minds. I'm not saying that our industry doesn't have problems. That would be ridiculous. I mean, every industry from the beginning of time has had problems, but I really want to focus on the positive side because I think the negative is overplayed and everybody's heard five versions of it. And so we just need something new, I think.
As we're recording this, I actually went to a local career fair yesterday at a high school, and it's really easy for industry to say, oh, these young people, they don't want to come in and work, and they're on their phones all the time, and they're not engaged, and they're not interested in our industry. And something I've learned over and over again as I go through these career fairs is that there are a lot of really interested young people in what we have to do and a career in this field. And they're really intelligent. I was talking to some that, even this kid that didn't know anything about cars, didn't even think he wanted a career in cars, and he just said, yeah, I'm kind of a technology kid, and I just like doing that, like anything with technology. And I'm like, well, here's an industry for you. Like, we're all about technology. We have technology all over the place. So I don't think it's an interest issue in terms of getting a new tech in, but I do think the negativity in our industry pushes that type of kid away, right? If they go on and they're going through social media, and I know a lot of kids use Snapchat and TikTok and a lot of different apps than I probably use. But if all they're hearing, or if all their parents are hearing when they go out there is like, oh, don't go to this industry, like, how can we grow the industry if we just keep telling people not to come in, right?
Yeah, no, that's 100% true. And I think most of what you'll see online is probably seasoned technicians and ones that probably got into the career maybe 20 years ago and never progressed out of it. And that's what we're going to kind of talk on today, is that a technician job is not your permanent career. You're not going to be a technician 20, 30 years. That's never the goal. It's a start. It's a progression. I mean, if you love the job, of course, you can do it your whole life and be very successful and make plenty of money. But there's a lot of career pathing behind being a technician. Once you're a master tech, you don't just stop. There's a lot to talk about. And I'm going to talk from the dealer side. Independent probably has their own branches as well, but the dealer side, just tons of opportunity past being a master technician. But you got to get to the master technician to get your foot in the door to get to the next level.
And so, current status with you with Toyota and Subaru. Give us an update. Where you at?
So this year has been pretty exciting. After about 5-6 years of just kind of putting my head down and grinding away, I got both of my statuses master tech through our dealership, which was just amazing. It's almost unheard of to train two brands in 5 years for master tech. So shout out to my store for doing that. That's amazing. But this year, it came off as a big, like, fruits of your labor type of thing. I won quality champion for Toyota. So I got to go do a trip with all the corporate people in the Portland region. They took us out, wined and dined us. We went go-karting, skeet shooting. We got to go into their dealer product reports, and then, just learn about the company, spend time with all of the higher ups. So that was super cool. And then most recently, I just came back from Philadelphia, and I got to go to the Subaru National Tech Competition. If any of you guys are familiar with like a Skills USA competition, this is very similar, just very Subaru specific. So I didn't end up winning, but the experience alone was just amazing. Me and Jay were kind of talking about this before, but the coolest part about that whole competition was meeting 14 other technicians that all had very successful careers. And these weren't all just, 60-year-old, 40-year-olds. There was a couple 20 and 30-year-olds there too, with the same kind of passion and drive for fixing cars. And it was just refreshing to be in a room of no negativity. And not saying that we all knew that there was the warranty. You bring up a warranty conversation, you get all technicians going. But it was just refreshing to see that everyone was very happy with where they're at, their job. They loved fixing cars, and they're all standing in the same room as me. It was super cool.
That is really cool. And I think it's refreshing, right? Because it's not something that you see every day. And, we talk a lot about culture in shops and how important that is. And when you surround yourself with those types of people, it can't help but kind of help uplift you, and hopefully you take that back to the dealership and you're able to motivate and uplift the others around you. But there's a lot that's said about you are the five people you surround yourself with, right? And I think that's a very similar concept to what you did by going to this competition. We talked prior to the show about the level of skill that these people had and the attitudes that these people had, and going to that competition, it just has to make you feel great about the industry, because there are some really bright people in this business.
Oh yeah, I mean, the guy who won it was definitely could have been anything in the world and decided to be technician type of people, and that's just, like I said, refreshing to see, because I think the industry, it just has a really bad concept as well. You just kind of fell into it or anything like that. I chose to be in this industry. It was by random, but I did make the initial choice, and I choose to stay every day. And I'll choose to stay in it, through better or worse. I'm here for it because I want to change the whole industry. I want to make it better. I want all of our technicians. And it all starts by talking to the young guys and changing their mindset in the door. Because if you have like you said, 5 people that tell them, you should quit, this isn't worth your time, that's initially, you're just going to kill a drive in a young person to progress. And, it bottoms out, and then they're not going to be happy because they're not going to move forward, not make more money, and you'll lose a technician eventually.
Yeah, and it's a shame because, I think we lose a lot of really, really talented people that way. And for anybody in day-to-day life, it can be very easy just to kind of have that roller coaster effect of, ups and downs. And it's not just technicians, although we've spent a lot of time talking about that. It happens. It happens everywhere. How do you keep yourself kind of in that positive mindset? And I know we've talked about this a little bit in the past, but I'm curious as to like what drives you to stay so positive about the industry, about your day-to-day life, about everything. Like it feels like every time I talk to you, you're in a good mood and things are going well.
Yeah. No, it's initially when I started out in my career, like I said, I was that one kid that had 5 guys around him telling him, don't waste your time with this. There was a couple times where I felt like I was like, I don't know if this is the right thing for me. Luckily, I just pushed through it and made it through. I mean, those first 2 years of flat rate, and let me tell you, those are special. Every job you got coming in the door, you just feel like you don't know anything, and you're like, I have no idea what I'm doing, and you lean heavily on the people around you. And luckily, in my store, we had an amazing mentorship. He's an old grumpy technician, not going to lie, but he did do a really good job of instilling some values onto me. And he showed me that there was still something to strive for. And I do the same thing for our guys here. And like I said, I'm trying to push even higher up than where he was, going to these competitions and showing these younger guys that there's more to this career. Like, don't just get caught up in the mindset that you're going to come in and flag warranty hours for the rest of your life for 30 years and then, poof, it's all gone. Another thing that really helps with the positivity is something that the manufacturers do. Like I said, Toyota and Subaru, they're very active in, taking the technicians that are successful out of the dealership and kind of showing them a good time. Like I said, take me on a trip or take me up to their the headquarters and, just show appreciation. And you'd be surprised. Just little things like that can change a technician's mindset. It just takes you out of the daily grind and gives you a nice fresh perspective on everything.
So let's go back to the competition a little bit and walk me through how did they select you to be a part of this competition?
So Subaru, they have a test that you take online. So they open it up every year or so. I think it's 2 years, honestly. And then you have to pass this written test. Now, the written test is only the initial, are you interested type of questions. And then they ask you, are you interested in pursuing this competition? They are very curious if you're willing to go to Japan, because if you do win, you get to go to the world competition and go compete with I think it's 14 nations. So they take this competition very seriously because they're looking for the guy that's going to go win in Japan, which I don't think the United States has ever won. So hopefully this year that guy's going to go and take that gold for us. So they want to know if you're willing to travel. That's a big thing. And then after you pass the test, you're going to be put up with all your guys in the region. So in my region, it was Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and I believe Alaska. And all the technicians that take this test, they then kind of select you out of paper, who's different statuses and everything like that. I was told they look at ASCs, so luckily I had plenty of those to lean back on. They look at quality monitoring reports, which are reports that I do to say, hey, I found a problem on your vehicle. This is something you should look at. And they also look at fix it right the first time percentages. So how is your, do you have high comeback rates, different things like that. So all of those are looked at, and then they also lean on the instructors and the local FTSs and FSEs to, how is this person? What do you think about their attitude? The biggest thing that they're looking for in that tech competition is they're looking for young guys that are just have a different perspective. Kind of interesting thing is that you got to keep in mind in Japan, flat rate isn't existent at all. So they're not looking for the fastest technician. They're looking for the highest quality and most efficient technician. Flat rate does not even exist over there. So if you try to rush in your well, at least not that I know of. So if you try to rush in your diagnostics, you actually kind of lose points. So it's a very different mindset going into that competition for sure.
So who sets up the competition? Like it's easy to say Subaru corporate, but is it the FTSs out there running the competition, or walk me through who judges it, the whole thing. I'm really, really curious.
Yeah. So they actually hire a guy, I believe, and his whole job is to handle this competition, set it up, do the bugs. He kind of supervises it. I mean, he didn't, and I think he also does, his other job. But when this competition is in game time, he's the guy. Chris Toros is, I believe, his name. As far as the judging, where the competition is at, it's in the Subaru corporate shop. So Subaru corporate headquarters, they have their shop building, and they actually have technicians there. They're all hourly, but they're Subaru line technicians just like me. They just work on only Subaru corporate vehicles. And then so these are the guys that came up with the bugs and everything like that. And let me tell you, they do think like a technician, so they know how to trick you up if you're not careful. They definitely, all of the people that I've met that were in that shop were former technicians at Subaru. So that alone, if you wanted to continue being a Subaru technician, and you could go work at corporate and get all the benefits of working at corporate and different things like that. So I didn't even know that was a career, honestly. And the whole national tech competition thing just opened my eyes to how much more there is behind being a technician. And they were very adamant that if you are wanting to progress, they'll make it happen. Just let them know.
Wow. So is it similar to Skills USA in that you have different breakout, I guess, not sessions, but the what am I looking for here? The different stations. That's what I'm looking for. Stations. So like time stations. So you go into a station, they time you and what your ability to diagnose or I think that part's even a little bit different than Skills USA, right? Because in Skills USA, you've got different types of stations all the way through, right? Where this sounds a little bit different there.
Yeah, this one was a little bit more layered. So basically, I got to go into a stall. They had it all, hidden off from everybody else. And then they had an open walk area where, you had the president of the Subaru, some of the Japanese people out there, and everyone can watch it.
Hold on. President of Subaru was there?
Yeah, oh yeah, he was a big fan of it. There, like I said, you go out there and everyone knew who you were. Like I'm telling you, the way they did the fanfare and set it up, you just felt like you were the most special person in the world.
Wow.
So yeah, it was amazing. But yeah, so you had your own little station, and I only worked on one car the whole time. So that was kind of cool. I didn't have to jump around. That kind of makes you feel like you had a little home base or whatnot. But we had three different stations. So we had precision measurement, and then we had body electrical diagnosis, and then engine performance diagnosis. The measurement section was 40 minutes. Then we had body electrical was 80 minutes, and then engine performance 80 minutes as well. Now, when you got into the electrical bugs, that's where it was kind of interesting because you would get handed a repair order, and just like at the dealership, it would say customer states something. And it's not customer states check engine light at pin. It's very vague, just like we're used to. So you would go through and diagnose it. But the other thing is you'd have to diagnose the bugs in a individual order. So you had one bug, two bugs, three bugs, all in the same car. Diagnose them all in 80 minutes if you can. So definitely a little bit of high pressure situation, and that was a big part of it. Is if you can handle the pressure, because that's what they're looking for to go compete in Japan. Because if you think the national is big, just wait till you see the world competition. So yeah.
That is nuts, and I have so many questions off of that. So
Yeah.
Is it similar? I know at the Skills side, the Skills USA side, a lot of it is you fix one bug, which then trips like another bug. Is it similar to that, or is it like what kind of not to give away the farm here, but like what kind of faults did you find? Like what was it that you were kind of hunting for?
Oh, okay. Well, they're never going to use the same faults over, so I don't think we have to worry about that.
Good.
But no, it is like all three bugs were active at one time, so it wasn't like you trip one onto the next. But it was layered in the fact that customer states vehicle doesn't crank. Okay, then we put in a battery, and then it says customer states vehicle now cranks but doesn't start. So there is some layering to it, but I don't think it really was, necessary to the competition. I think they were just trying to simulate an actual concern that happened. Because, normally if you have a fault on the vehicle and it's going to not start, you're going to have a dead battery. So they were trying to simulate that same thing to see how a technician would react to it.
Are they judging your diagnostic process? So like when they, the very first thing you did was pull the codes and, then kind of just...
Oh, yeah.
They're watching to see what you do, how you do that, right?
They want to see what you do as a technician and how efficiently you make steps to the next diagnostic. They also are very much down to the details. So one of the things that I caught on my car was they had a leaf in the cabin filter. So you pull that leaf out and you get some extra points. If you use fender covers on the car, you get some extra points. If you put in the floor mat and, plastic, the seat, all these little things, those are a collection of points as you proceed forward in the competition. So that was kind of cool to see, because and again, it's based off the Japanese competition. And so it was just a whole different shift, right? Because when I get a car, the porters have already done most of that stuff, it's written up, all of these things were done before. So it was a little bit different, but, once you have the understanding of kind of what they're looking for, you can kind of pick up some extra points. I mean, a smudge on the door, I wipe down certain things. Those are all catching you some extra points along the way.
That is interesting. That sounds super in depth, and
Yeah.
It's cool because I can tell in talking to you there was a huge sense of pride in being able to represent your dealership.
Oh, yeah.
And and honestly, even at the shot at the world side, I know in Skills USA I've had Tom Wozniak on the podcast before, and he's the national director of the diesel competition. And at one point they had gone to Russia for the world skills competition, and I can't remember what country it is, whether it was Japan or China, one of the Asian Asian countries. They will actually prep kids from like the time they're like 12 years old.
No, they're serious.
Yeah, for that. And like if they win the competition, like their family gets like their house paid for. Like it's like intense.
Yeah, no, I think some countries take it super serious. And when I heard that the United States had never won, I mean, I was like, man, that's absolutely crazy. I hope to be able to go back to that competition and someday and actually do, because I would love to take home the gold for the United States and bring that
How
home.
cool would that be? I mean, that gives me chills. That would be awesome.
Yeah, right. No, and then that just goes back to, it's not just you're doing it for a whole. It's not just for you, right? You're doing it for your country, and that's, I think, what we miss sometimes nowadays is that we're doing it for us, and China, like you said, they take it seriously from day one. This is, hey, you're going to go do this, and we're going to help you get there. So I do hope that Jim, the guy that took first place, I hope he goes over there and takes the gold from him. That would make me very happy.
Well, you'll have to keep us posted on that. And if anybody from Subaru is listening to this, please let us know how to follow that and maybe share the message there. That is very, very cool. And I think all in all, none of this happens without kind of that general positivity within what you do each day, right? And even the outlook of a competition, I think attitude has so much to do with how you look at that competition, right? And you went down, you didn't win the competition, but you came back with experiences that you'll probably never forget in your life.
Yeah.
But it could have easily been like, well, that's a stupid competition. I don't want to do that. And like, you know what I'm saying? Like amongst technicians, like if you're not like bought in and you're, kind of that rebellious type, and I've been guilty of that in the past, right? But like hearing your experience there, I'm like, my goodness, that is amazing. That is really, really damn cool.
No, it's exciting. And like I said, I was blown away that I got selected and even got to get a chance to go up there. But it was just, like I said, a phenomenal experience. I'll never forget it for sure. And I actually ended up taking my apprentice with me because my wife ended up having a kid, about a month and a half ago now. So
congratulations.
We weren't going to be able to bring the little guy on a flight. And so she ended up staying home. She was a little upset about that, of course. But I did get to bring one of my former apprentices, and he was no longer working at our shop. He had moved on to an independent type of shop where he thought he saw a better opportunity. But the funniest thing was at the end of this trip, it was just a complete shift for him. His mindset, what he wanted to do, what he thought being a technician was, This guy had worked in our dealership for at least a year, and he did take on some of the harder work, all the heavy line, and he did get a little burnt out on it. And I can only say so much, when guys at that point, when they're kind of going through the rough of it, where they're not seeing the massive pay initially, and like I said, it's a lot of grinding sometimes and lack of seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. But when I took him to this competition, he did. I could tell. He sat next to the president of Subaru at dinner, and he had a little chat with him, and he was just blown away by it all. And he's going to come back to the dealership now. He's very inspired to pursue, and he wants to go to that tech competition and actually win it himself. So,
correct me if I'm wrong, the shop that he was at was his family shop, wasn't it?
yeah, no, it's a pretty big deal that he's coming back because it is a family shop. His dad owns it. I mean, I was kind of blown away that he wanted it, but what he truly saw was just the potential for the career. I mean, he was with me the whole time, right? He was my little shadow and my cheerleader at the competition, and he saw all of the opportunity and what Subaru does with technicians. I mean, I would say that easily 50% of the people that we met in Subaru corporate, and we met hundreds, were all former technicians that had progressed into the career. And they went from tech line to working in the shop to the Subaru museum, where they like take care of these classic Subarus and do all kinds of crazy stuff, to working in Subaru corporate and dealing with warranty. I mean, there's just endless amounts of career pathing, and it all started by going to that competition and seeing it. So he just got really excited, and it was awesome to see because, like I said, this guy, before he left, he was just kind of going through the rough of it, and he didn't really see what it could become. And like I said myself, I didn't know what it could become either at one point or another, but luckily Toyota and Subaru have shown me a lot of love throughout my career. So I'd like to say the same things down to the younger guys and let them know it's all possible.
I think it's so important that you do see that vision for your career as a technician. And a lot of times it can be a grind, and you're out there and you're working each day and you're producing hours. And you mentioned something earlier about how a lot of times we make it about ourselves. Well, in a lot of cases, it has to be, because that's how you're making your living, right? You have to be able to turn hours so that you're getting paid. And I think when we do that, we almost become numb to the fact that we got into this industry for a reason. Like we loved working on cars, and then it kind of got warped over the years. And it can quickly, especially if you're surrounded by negative people, it can quickly drive your passion out the window, right? And I think these types of things are opportunities. And kudos to Subaru and Toyota, because both great manufacturers. I say it consistently. They're always in that upper tier of manufacturer when I talk to schools and when I talk to other industry folks. Like they're just very, very quality manufacturers. But what they're doing is, if they can take you out of the kind of minutia or the mundaneness of the shop at times, and get you refreshed and get you remotivated. And, I think even for the most positive person in the world, you're going to have days that are not what you expect or not what you want when you're in there, and you get in these ruts. And if something like that can get you out of a rut, man, that can save your career.
No, and I've had that, and please don't think that I'm always, super positive, because I do have my downtimes in this industry too. I mean, like I said, we all have those days and those weeks that just don't go your way. You break everything that you touch, or it just doesn't work out, and that's entirely possible. I've had multiple points in my career where I've been at that point, but luckily I had a Toyota class, a Subaru class, a Toyota corporate event. They pull you out of it, and it's like you said, it's like the reset button. They smack it down on you, and you just get a fresh perspective. You take a breath, and you go back, and you're ready to continue on. And I'd say the first time, what really helped at my dealership was that I was constantly in a class. I mean, the only time that I wasn't was during COVID, and that's because they literally shut them down. And I would say that was probably the longest stretch. And I can say that I did have a couple of down points in COVID, that it was pretty rough, sometimes. But what I always had to look forward to was the next class, the next progression. And when you go up to these training centers and they show you appreciation and they give you some new knowledge or something new to try, it kind of excites you and gets you ready to go back in the shop and try it out.
You talked about those first couple of years in the industry. I know we've had several discussions about that, but I do think that is an area of concern, is that young technician that comes in and you get put in that sink or swim type of scenario pretty quickly.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on do we move people to flat rate too fast, or do we? Oh, and some of it, and I'm going to kind of reverse course here just a second.
Yep.
I think some of this at times can be the technician themselves pushing to go too fast, right? Because we don't see that pay immediately, and then you do see that really experienced tech in the shop, and they're making really, really good money, and you're like, I could do that, and then you do it, and it's a struggle. I remember being a young technician and not being patient at all, and really like, yeah. You're like, you know what? I can do that advanced diagnostics. I can hop on a scope, and then you do it, and you're like, I'm freaking terrible at this. But I do think some of it is driven by a young technician's impatience and need to be like paid higher. And if they could just take a step back and just be like, hey, I need to learn here first. I need to really, I just had Brandon Steckler on from Motor Age magazine, and he is brilliant. And he talked about how they do it in Europe and how it's more of an apprenticeship, and a true apprenticeship where you are learning your craft while you're in the shop, in their workshop. And I think we could learn so much from that, both from the shop side and the technician side. And if somehow we can get both sides to be just a little bit more patient, I think we'd have a lot more success.
100%. I fully agree with that. As far as like moving to flat rate, it totally depends on the person, because you'll just get this guy and he's mechanically inclined, and everyone thinks an apprentice is a 20-year-old kid. I've had apprentices that are 32 that just wanted a change of career. And I think age is a big factor, because when you do mature, you kind of settle down a little bit. You're a little more patient, and sometimes you're even a little more driven at that point to continue forward. So some of the best apprentices I've had have been older and a little more mellow, but they were ready to go flat rate in a couple of months. Whereas some of the younger guys, they need some more life skills. They need some more time to mellow, and that maturity. And they do take a little bit longer on the apprentice side before they're ready for flat rate. The other thing is about flat rate is when you do start out a young guy, you're only going to give him probably the easy work. So a lot of these guys that do start out on flat rate, they really build up that confidence, which is great. But here's the thing is when they actually do start stepping into that harder and harder work, if you're not careful how you trickle it into them, you can really deflate them as a technician really early on. If you gave them like 3 or 4 hard diagnostics in a day, it's going to hurt their paycheck. It's going to hurt their mindset, rather than maybe giving them a couple good brake jobs and then also trickling in some a diagnostic here where a mentor can kind of step in and kind of help them out and show them. I also think that, like you said, a mentorship program where they're working with a master technician, it will kind of stifle that urgentness to go up to the top level, because they'll see the kind of work that you're doing at that top level and probably get a little bit more perspective. I know one of the things I always do with my apprentices is once they kind of build up their confidence and they feel like they're ready to take on a challenge, I throw them a check engine light and step away completely and see how they progress and how they handle it. And that usually gives them and me a really good insight on where they're both at.
I like that a lot. And I'm still working to settle down a little bit. I do look at, when I came into the industry, well, I started at a very young age at my dad's shop, and I think I looked at techs every day growing up, and what they didn't seem hard because they could do it in their sleep, right? In a lot of cases, and this is back in the '90s, and then as I got into it and started to understand, like, hey, not everything is easy, and especially up here, we've got rust on everything, so it makes life miserable. Want to win cash while helping the industry? Check out our game on WrenchWay Shop Talk called The Loneliest Number. Each week, we post quick poll questions about industry topics. Technicians who answer the questions will earn points to play the Loneliest Number game for a chance to win our $1,000 monthly prize. $500 will go to the lucky winner, and the other $500 will go to a local high school program of the winner's choice. Start playing now at wrenchway.com/shoptalk. Link is in the show notes. Okay, so we were talking about patience in young technicians and the shop side as well. I think there's a lot that we could do from both ends to really kind of get on the same page. One of the things you mentioned was having that mentor to go to, not maybe that mentor that's going to say, I learned the hard way, so you're going to learn it the hard way, right? Like, I think, even though it sounds like maybe that's the way that you kind of came into it a little bit here.
Yeah, no, it was a little bit how I learned, but there was a couple things that I like to change. And like I said, I try to keep it. I do believe at some point you will need to be hands off with your apprentice, because if you safety cushion them the whole time, then when they're finally out on their own, or you're taking a vacation day or something like that, they're going to fall on their face. So through the apprenticeship, of course, the first couple of months, just hold their hand the whole way. They're walking around with you and everything like that. But once they have their bearings, and especially if you have a guy that's a little bit confident and cocky, I've experienced that in a couple of them. let him kind of see what it is to be. I mean, so like, give him something that isn't going to be basic, and then watch what happens. It will be a good experience on both ends. You'll get a couple chuckles out of it, I'm sure, but you'd be surprised how much you may be stepping in as a mentor to be helping your young guy. I do it all the time, is that I'll kind of give them a diagnostic direction that maybe I didn't mean to, just by saying a couple of words. Whereas if you just have them start with a check engine light, they're going to look at you sometimes and just have a blank stare. And that's where you've got to be like, okay, well, let me show you where to get the information, type of thing. So that definitely helps prepare them for working by themselves, because you don't want them to be reliant on you the whole way through.
No, and I think that's a really good point. If you're in that mentorship side, if maybe they're struggling for confidence and you can tell they're struggling for confidence, try to get them some layups. If they're a little confident and a little cocky, bring them back down to earth a little bit, right? But like, the importance of knowing where you stand at with that young person as a mentor probably means the world in terms of what you're actually teaching them and how they're, how you're helping them progress.
Oh yeah, play it by ear, big time. I've mentored about 4 people, and everyone has had a different personality to learn from. And like I said, the cocky guy to the guy that has no confidence, you're gonna have to completely change how you approach it. But both are going to be good in their own ways. I mean, the guy that's confident, he'll go tearing out an engine because he believes in himself. And the guy that doesn't have the confidence, you might have to motivate him to get him there. But once he sees it, he's going to feel really good. So, I mean, it's just, you got to play it by ear to the person. And nowadays, like you were saying, and I don't think it's ever changed, is that young people are very impatient sometimes. And the biggest thing as a mentor that you can do is kind of be the the land on the horizon, in the rocky ocean, is that you can kind of stabilize them when they need it, because you will get kind of caught up in the industry and have those frustrations, and you've got to make sure that you have an open line of communication with that person, because there is going to be a time where they probably want to quit. I Everyone has that. It's ridiculous to say that there hasn't been days where someone was want to quit their job because they're just frustrated, and you never want to shun them away in that time, and you never want to downplay it in that time. You just want to be honest with them and tell them that it's just today, and hit them with the classic line, they'll be better tomorrow. Even though that doesn't help at the time, uh, it just makes it worse. But you continue to do that, and you continue to talk with them, and you build that relationship, and they're going to trust you. And if there is a day where they say, I'm thinking about moving on or something like that, they'll hopefully have that open line of communication with you, and you can really find out if it's just a moment, or if it's actually something that they're ready to move on with. That conversation will save jobs every single time. And I've had it across multiple people at our shop multiple times. And sometimes it's just not going to work out. But at least you know that it wasn't anything that you could have done to make it better.
I think the one of the real challenges with being a shop right now is knowing that there are all kinds of opportunities for a technician out there right now. And, in a lot of cases, it might not be going to be a technician somewhere else. It might be just
Yeah.
leaving the industry. And so when you're really looking at this and you're trying to get, that bad day from becoming a bad week, and then a bad month, and then a bad 6 months, and then they are
Yeah.
frustrated and they leave. I think when you look at that challenge, it's very unique. And again, I was at a career fair yesterday, and this is something we talked about. It wasn't just our industry; it was kind of everybody, every industry
Yeah.
that was in this conference room at the end of the day. And that was one of the general frustrations with a lot of the businesses that were there, is that there's so many opportunities now that it's not like it used to be, where you were kind of lucky to have a job, and especially if you were in a good place, you didn't take that for granted as much, just
Yeah.
because it wasn't like I could just, hey, I'm just going to go down the street and get another job somewhere. But I don't think this is something that's going away. I think this competitive environment, not only in our industry but everywhere, is continuing to happen. There was some data put out that the population is shrinking in general, right? So, and there's more opportunities for
Yeah.
these folks. There's, a company like WrenchWay didn't exist 20 years ago. So, like, there's just so many different opportunities for people. There's less people. And so
Yeah.
it's created this environment where, I think it almost hurts that young technician at some level, because if they get pissed one day and they're just like, you know what, screw it, I'm gone,
Yeah.
it doesn't help them grow, because they're not having to kind of work through that hard part.
Right.
And if they just take that easy way out and then start over again, they're
Yeah.
almost damaging themselves from truly working on their craft and their skill, just because that bad week turned into a bad month, right? And I think I don't know if I have an answer to that, other than to say it is a challenge. I for all of you businesses out there, or all those shops that are listening to this,
Yeah.
it is a challenge, and it sucks, because there's some level of, like, I'm sure there's a lot of young technicians you want to help out, but if they just get frustrated and leave right away, then it's there's not much you can do there.
No, you really can't help them. I would say the one of the best pieces of advice for a young technician is, if you have a shop where you have a good mentor, good people around you, and the pay isn't that great, then I would stay at that shop all day long. Because if you're able to progress, the pay is eventually going to come. Don't
Yeah,
just be so short-sighted, because you can ask my manager. When I first started, I wanted all the money in the world, and
we
all
all
that.
do.
You're right. Everyone does. So I'm used to hearing that. But if you can truly understand that, if you have a good mentor, that's a better investment than making $5,000, $10,000 more a year, then see it as an investment. the people sometimes can make or break you. Where, the shop that's offering the highest money, that might be because they have a high turnover and they don't offer the same progression and building because they're desperate for people. So I've seen that happen, is that people will follow the money and then it just leads to them burning out or changing careers.
Technicians, are you looking for a new job? Even if you're just casually looking, you need to check out reverse job posts. Reverse job posts flip the traditional job board around. You fill out a short questionnaire and let shops reach out to you with questions or job opportunities. No resume needed. The best part is all of your contact information remains anonymous until you're ready to share it. It's a great way to explore new job opportunities, and it's completely free. To create a reverse job post, simply download the free WrenchWay mobile app or visit WrenchWay.com and click on the reverse job post link. We've also included the links in the show notes.
You mentioned earlier in the podcast and in some of our prior conversations that you felt like you're finally to the point to where the fruits of your labor are starting to pay off. The work that you've put in getting master certified in both Toyota and Subaru, all the additional tests, the helping out the others and getting ASEs that we've talked about in past podcasts. Hindsight's 2020, but looking back, what would you tell your younger self then? Because if you were desiring all of that, it's maybe the same thing you just said there, but now that you're starting to see the fruits of your labor pay off,
right?
It's easy to say, oh yeah, like this was easy. But like looking back, you're like, oh man, if I could have just told myself at this point, like just stick with it, like keep even headed, like even keeled.
No,
it might have made life a little easier.
Yeah, and luckily I had a mentor, because like I said, I had those days where I didn't see it really paying off for a while, and I would go talk to him, and we have an open line of communication. I tell him if I'm frustrated and what's going on, and he's been in the industry, over 20 years, so he knows ups and downs. He knows people when they're frustrated and when they're done, and he always kind of kept me level-headed and told me to keep at it. And he didn't know where I would end up today. He didn't know I would go to this competition. He didn't know I would win that Toyota, quality champion. But he just kept me in the mindset that you need to continue forward and don't just get caught up in the money and all of this. And so I try to instill the same thing on people nowadays, because that's really what saved me leaving the career early on. Because like I said, those first couple of years, they're pretty rough. And then the back half of, so like say those first years of flat rate, now you're finally feeling confident and doing the jobs, and you know what you're doing a little bit. The next step is, once you're at that point where you're doing the job and you're confident in it, is how do you continue forward? And that's another place where we lose people, is that you get confident that you know how to do everything, and you kind of lose the drive to continue that learning process and push forward. So you'll lose technicians sometimes at a 2-year mark. You have a really productive guy. He's making really good money. He's loving life. And then 2 years in, he realizes he's tired of scraping the same fippage or doing the same brake job and everything like that. So if there's not something to continue forward with, you're gonna lose them there too. And it's just, there's so many opportunities to leave. I think we get lost on what we're going towards. There's a lot of exits along the way.
How hard was it? You mentioned it being very hard on flat rate the first couple of years. I think that is the time when your confidence can just go right down the tank, right? Because it is like you're trying to learn, that, hey, this 1 hour job just took me 8 hours.
Yep.
And I'm getting paid for that 1 hour.
Right.
And I think when you're in that spot, and I know you said power of mentor, and I totally agree, but man, there's times when even a mentor or anybody, when they come to you and they're like, it'll be all right. You'll keep working.
It'll be okay.
You're like,
it'll all be better.
You, man. Like I
I've said that a couple times to mine for sure, and I hear it too sometimes. But I don't know. I had a different perspective going into it, and honestly, I can't really say where I picked it up from. But when I looked at flat rate, I guess this is the best way that I found to look at it, is that when I looked at flat rate starting out, I knew I wasn't going to make money. I was one of the slowest technicians ever. Like I said, I was green. I didn't know how to do anything, and I didn't have a lot of tools. Like, I was starting greenest blank slate you could possibly get. But the one thing I did had going for me was that when I looked at a warranty job or flat rate pay, I knew I wasn't going to make time on it. I just knew that going into it. So my perspective was, well, if I'm not going to make money at it, I can at least learn how to make money at it. So my first 2 years of flat rate, I would work 12 hours a day, because the one good thing about flat rate, and no one really talks about this, is if you're young, you can work as many hours as you want as long as your shop is open. And people are going to say, well, that's terrible. But the thing is that allowed me to quickly learn how to do things. And I was able to do it in a time when there was no distractions. There wasn't service advisors. There wasn't people around to laugh at me for making a dumb mistake. It was me in the shop after hours with our shop foreman. And he would just leave me be, and I would be taking apart Subaru engines and putting them back together, till 7, 8 o'clock at night for 2 years. And that the skills that I learned in that time, it allows me to advance my career massively. And I'm not saying that's for everybody, but flat rate literally allowed me to move up faster than if I was an hourly employee that had to leave.
That was just kind of like that light switch moment for me when you just said that, because I think that is such a good point. Assuming you don't have a manager that's beating you up for like, what's
Yeah.
going on here? What, like,
Wasn't from my manager. That was all me. No one forced me to do it. I had technicians tell me, "What are you doing, working this late, doing this for this little pay?" And I just saw it as the way is that I paid $5,000 to go to tech school, and now I'm getting paid to learn. That's the way I look
love
at every
that.
warranty job. And I'm not saying that I would do that nowadays, with the family and everything at home. But while I was young and had that opportunity, I did it, and it worked out really well.
I think that drives work ethic too, right? Because in even when you back off later on in life, you put in the time, and like almost anything you do from that point forward is going to kind of seem easy because
Right.
you put the
Yes.
time in, and you
Yeah.
sacrificed. And I just love your mindset on that, because and I hadn't thought about it that way, in that I'm getting paid on this job this amount regardless. I went into it knowing that I'm not going to hit time, but it
Yeah.
allowed me additional time to be able to truly dig into it. And I look back too, and I hear so many young techs that are like, yeah, you know what? I'd love to learn how to use a scope, but
Yeah.
I can't do that like on a customer
Right.
job.
Yeah.
And so that gave you the opportunity to actually like dive in and do some things that maybe you wouldn't have otherwise.
Oh, no, there's no way. Like, if I had just worked 8 hours a day, I would have never had the time to make the mistakes the way I did, or take the time to learn the way I did, because I would be so caught up in trying to get my hours done in
Mm.
that time. So by taking that extra time where there's no one around and it's just you in the car, or and you can focus in and truly learn. And to this day, I can do engine jobs faster than most in the shop, when I'm left alone, because I took that time and I truly mastered the craft in that area. And you can do this not just with engine jobs, but with anything. If you have a hard electrical car, I always tell my guys, well, maybe you need some time when it's a little bit slower and there's less people bothering you, to just slow down and take the time to make the mistakes and learn, because that's invaluable when it comes to practicing.
And it's amazing what you can do in a quiet environment. Like
Yeah.
when you are able to just laser focus in a relaxed way that's not high stress. And I think when a young technician goes on flat rate, a lot of times they think it's implied that I have to make this time, I have to hit
Yep.
this time. And if they took the same approach you did, I think they would be so much more successful in not going in and saying, oh, if I'm just not making these times, just going in and saying, I know I'm not going to make these times, and that's okay.
Yeah. No, anytime I do a job, even as a master tech now, I expect to almost double some of the warranty times.
Wow.
And it's the thing, like, you know, you'll see online that if you don't make warranty time, then you're not a good technician, and terrible comments like that. I've never made warranty time, I think, on the first time doing a job, and that's because warranty times are developed to not be done the first time. And there's nothing wrong with not making time. You're going to learn and progress. The whole point about being in a dealership is you're working on the same product over and over. And maybe it's a different engine 5 years later, but you still understand how that product works, and you learn. So I mean, it's invaluable. And like I said, I always tell these guys when they're doing warranty work, I paid $5,000 to go to tech school, and you're getting paid to do this job and learn it. And same for like UTI. I mean, these guys will pay $20,000-$30,000, and you're here able to learn, do this job with people that are going to help you around here. And you're not paying a dime. You're actually making money.
That's a really, really positive thought process. I love that. And even, when you look at it, something as simple as like, how do I get this cover off? Or how do I get, it's not like we talk about advanced diagnostics a lot, but, there's just an art to being able to get those clips off the right way and not break them, right? Like it's that little stuff that like that just breeds efficiency. And every time you do it, you get a little bit better at it. And if you learn to do it the right way and don't just force something, like it's going to have a really positive impact on your work life.
Yeah, and like I said, just have that mindset that it's okay not to make time. I like I said, I still don't make time on sometimes doing my first warranty job, and I still have people in the shop sometimes say, "Well, you're doing it slow," and I'm like, "Yeah, well, it's my first time," but I guarantee if I've done it 10 times that I'm going to match that time, if not do better on it. And that's how it's supposed to be. That's how our industry works, and that's how flat rate works. For all the bad things around it, that is how it works.
This is great stuff, my friend. That last piece right there was so helpful for me to understand a piece that like I knew, but also hadn't put together the way that you just eloquently stated it. It was just that was really, really good.
Well, it's always surrounded in negativity. You work too much to make your pay, but I'm not even joking when I say that it can be turned the other way.
Yeah, you're proof.
Yeah, it 100% can, and that's why when I hear everything bashing flat rate and how we get paid, it kind of upsets me a little bit, because if we were all hourly, I would have only been able to work 40 hours a week for the first 2 years, and I guarantee I wouldn't be where I'm at today.
That's incredible. Congratulations on all of the success. And it's so awesome to hear that you're feeling the payoff now and all of the hard work that you've put in over the years, and really the passion for the industry for somebody that didn't come from the industry in growing up in it. It's so refreshing. And I just keep being you and driving that positivity throughout the industry, because it's incredibly powerful. I wish we could clone you and put you all over the nation. That would be really helpful. But but we do really appreciate, everything you do out there, and are huge fans of everything that you're doing. I'm very confident you're going to go back to that Subaru competition and kick some butt.
Yep.
And hopefully we'll see it that world competition at some point.
That would be awesome. But I hope anyone that's feeling that same thing that I felt when I was starting out, they will hear this. It may be a rare shot, but I do hope it makes an impact on somebody, because I needed the same help when I first started.
Well, thank you for being on the podcast yet again. I'm sure it's not the last time. We'll definitely have you back on again. It's always a great interview, and just appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
That wraps up this week's episode of Beyond the Wrench. Be sure to tune in next week for another brand new episode. As a reminder, don't forget to rate and follow Beyond the Wrench on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. This helps us get Beyond the Wrench in front of other fantastic shop owners, managers, technicians, and dealers just like you, so we can continue to help improve, promote, and grow this amazing industry. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll be back next week.